just check it's coming through. I'll put this one on YouTube because I think there's slightly more views. I get 100% more views over on YouTube than I do one over on. Now, if let me just double check this is on. Let's look at how wonderful AI is. So AI appears to be pretty competent at building certain little tools. Previously, I would go online, have a look around, and be like, "Oh, this is cool." I felt like an LP tracker. I felt like an LP calculator, etc., etc. I'll go in, have a look, and be like, "Oh, okay, this might be what sort of APR or API I'll be getting." But now it's got to the point where you can basically just build whatever you want, and it comes out pretty decent. So I want to teach everyone how to use this particular tool. If anything, I was going to figure out how it works, to be honest. I think what I'm trying to get to is what most people already know. I think there's a tool out there. It's like if you inject $10 million into a system, what would it do? And there's other variables like buyer pressure, sell pressure. I'm not sure if it looks at LP pools, and you then get a price. So that's what we all mostly care about. Although building stuff is kind of cool. This one here though is it seems to have a large number at the top for my technical words there. It then has the price of pHEX, then has the price of pulse chain, as you can see. Now it's developed a slight divergence, now mild signal only. I'm not sure how accurate these signals are. I was trying to develop a way to gauge whether or not hex is cheap or pulse is cheap relative to one another. Now you can see here just some other little factors. It says here though, if you were to set pHEX as the base or set pulse as the base, and then you can see the ratio, current ratio being this here, 2.19, and some other details. Now, you could go back and check and see if it is historically accurate. It's slightly out in terms of when the price of hex on pulse chain was a bit lower. What the suggested price? I'm not even sure what it would be, what the forecasted price, but what the price would be based on the parameter set. Then you have also other sort of unique findings. Now we'll go over them. Again, most people already know this in the hex. You guys here? Hey, what's up, man? Evening. It's like raining out here. Yesterday or the day before, it was like really nice sunny weather, like really nice. It's freezing though, man. It is very cold. Now, so here's the guide, basically trying to teach myself. Hopefully this helps a little bit. How to use and understand this. Now, I want to say it's straightforward, but then there might be things I'm missing. So it says here, the big number at the top is your anchor for everything. It tells you how many pulse tokens it costs to buy one pHEX right now. So that's this here. Watch time frame appears below. If the number is going up over a 24-hour period, pHEX is gaining on pulse. If it's going down, pulse is gaining on pHEX. Okay. You could probably visually add that in, but the way it is not too bad. I want to revamp this site after this as well because it's like, with AI, it's like, do you want to make it like 10 times? But I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do that. Maybe one day I'll actually host it somewhere, but like for the time being, it's just going to be a GoDaddy site, I think. So where is it? The two price cards. Now, I just love prices. Okay, nothing complicated. Just last. You can use other places to get the actual price, but I found myself, because I've built this, I'm going to use this. It's the easiest way. You can actually go into the dexes themselves, whatever that may be, pHEX. Not 1 inch, what's the other one? Liberty Swap, and maybe run some of the wallets and stuff. There's the privacy wallets that one's built, and that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I won't go on that train of thought. I won't speak those words at the moment. We'll focus on this tool. Next one is the valuation gauge. Is one of the tool. Is the core of the tool and answers the question you actually care about. Right now, Is pulse cheap or expensive relative to pHEX? Read the verdict box below. The gauge bar. It will tell you in plain English one of four things. So look, where's this gauge bar? I think it's here. Pretty sure it's here. I can't see that. Gauge bar. My God, I can't see. Maybe it's a snare matrix. Maybe this is the gauge bar. All right. Assume it's the gauge bar. Now, is pulse cheap or expensive relative to pHEX? Read the verdict box below. The gauge bar. It will tell you plain English for things. Pulse looks cheap versus pHEX. Pulse looks expensive versus pHEX. I focus on these two, but there are other people who like other tokens in the ecosphere. It is good that other sell it full scripted. It is good that other tokens exist on Pulse chain because you don't want a ghost chain. Whether or not I what's that important? Whether or not I actually think that they bring any value or worth to the chain is another question. We're not going to go there, but they're there. The community's there, so whatever. Go ahead, people, build. That's what it's here for. All it takes is someone to build something like, what was that thing, Bonk on Solana, something like random meme Trump coin or whatever. It pops up on Pulse chain this particular bull run, if it ever happens, and they're off to the races, people. It might just be Hex, who knows? It'd be funny if Hex just becomes this OG god coin. But anyway, so the reasoning, back to this, the reasoning is right there underneath you so you understand why it's saying what it's saying. Again, I don't know how to test it because you can put in the current price and it's going to be like 100% based on the numbers that it has because it's like mathematics. But the reason I think it's interesting is if you start putting in prices, where are we at? pHEX. So what's the price of pHEX now? 0.0. Yeah, that's not right. Set pHEX. Oh yeah, okay. 1568. 1568. All right. So okay, I don't want that. Why does it look weird now? Okay. Is that right? I can barely read this target price. 0.01. Why is it negative? So it's saying that 0.000. I need to zoom in. I can't read this shit. There we go. That might make it a bit better. I went back to some other streams. I was trying to read what was on the screen. I'm like, damn, I wish I had some better screenshots. Now, I'll keep reading this, people. Now, the valuation gauge, yeah, we did that. A bidirectional calculator is where it really gets useful. There are two modes. Mode A, set pHEX. So set pHEX here. You believe pHEX will hit a certain price. Type it in. The tool will immediately tell you what pulse would need to be at the same time, assuming the current ratio holds. How much of a gain is this from today? Like if it's going up, it's going down, if it's a loss. And if you enter the holdings exactly what they'll be worth, the answer is if Hex Moon, does Pulse Moon with it. So that's kind of why I was thinking about the Hex WPLS or PLS pools, and then like having those two compared against each other because ages ago someone found was saying something about maybe they move up together. They've clearly moved down together. Please be the all-time low have passed. Please have been. It just depends on how many people sell, but it has been a brutal bear market. And if we're thinking that it's going up, we can have a look here. So say we go, Hex hits a penny. What price would Pulse chain likely be? I'm not sure how it's going to work because I feel like the prices have been murdered so hard. They're so low that any price movement that feels like a little mini pump because it is numbers go up in large percentages. But I thought I'd build this calculator to try and see where it would end up. Now I should probably add into this sacrifice rates. We'll add sacrifice rates in maybe either on this page or add that in because that would be useful for me. Sorry people in the chat. This is just me like for myself doing this. So then we have bidirectional. Mode B, set pulse and find pHEX, flip it. If you believe pulse will hit a certain price, the tool solves backwards how we tell you what pHEX would be implied at that PS price. So if pulse moves, if pulse pumps, what does that mean for pHEX? Now you could see them sort of one pumps and another pumps. I'm not so sure. Again, different factors. That's why I got this tool. The ratio assumption drop down in the calculator is worth understanding. Current ratio stays fixed, means both assets move together proportionally. You could map this out. I'm not sure whether it will actually help. pHEX reaches parity, means pHEX closes the gap on eHEX. Now, I was going to, that was the initial thing that we're looking at, because AI seem to think that if eHEX were to close some of the gap with pHEX, I'm not sure how that would happen, but it wanted to figure that out first, and that seemed to be its main priority. Now, there is the other thing I'm thinking about, which is actuator finance. I may have a look at that soon-ish, but I'm thinking that could be useful. But I went through, had a look, and it was clear that it is very similar to a bond market. However, the very simple explanation is people need to use it. If people don't use it, it won't be so useful, and it won't function like a bond market. If it does and is used, it could be more useful. That's as far as I got with that. Now, back to this, because I think this is probably worth thinking about. Will the price of one thing go up, and how much will it go up by, and which one is better? Now, I still think, which one do I think is better? I still think Hex is better, but that's insane technically because the other one's a chain and the other one's a smart contract. So I'm not really sure. You can compare. If you were to compare tokens with tokens, then I would say, Hex has done the biggest access. Pulse chain has the potential to do so, only compared to Ethereum because of what Ethereum did. Now, if you look at Ethereum in its early years, it didn't perform as amazingly as it is currently now, but it wouldn't surprise me if Pulse chain does, in some stage in the future, go up a fair bit. If it does go up a fair bit, gas might suck, yeah. There might be some upgrades, yeah, but it could also increase the price of something that I like, which is Hex. That's why I built this website. Now back to this. The ratio assumption drop down in calculator is worth understanding. Current ratio stays. So this here, right? So say we go, say we just mess with the ratio. Current ratio is half, 2x stronger. pHEX is 2x stronger, custom enter below. Ooh. Okay, so you can just change it. So you can make it like 3x or whatever, 10x. Current ratio, let's leave it current ratio. It explains that every single, not the snare matrix, sorry. Current ratio assumption drops down. Current is worth understanding. Current ratio stays fixed, means both assets move together proportionally. pHEX reaches parity, means pHEX closes the gap to eHEX. Price as pulse also moves. Custom lets you create your own ratio if you think the relationship will shift. Useful if you believe pulse chain will gain or lose ground relative to its current state. Now, I could look into that more, but we'll just stick to what we know on the particular tool here. Now, the scenario matrix is the most powerful reference table. Rows are different pHEX price targets. Columns are different ratio scenarios. So that means that every single cell shows an implied pulse price at that combination. Green cells mean pulse will be above where it is today. Red means below. Find the row closest to your pHEX price target and scan across to see how sensitive the implied pulse ratio is to ratio changes. If all the cells in that row are green, regardless of ratio, that's a strong scenario for pulse. Now that reminds me a lot like when you're looking at some finance textbooks what various figures would be. You have a big, massive chart, and it's like, okay, look it up for yourself, plonk it in, put it into your calculator, spreadsheet, whatever, and you get an answer, probably with your formula. Now, what we see here is kind of interesting. So here's the current pHEX price. The scenario matrix, green is above pulse price and red below, current row highlighted. Now, we're looking at, what is this? Ratios. Okay. So yeah, that's the matrix, what it could do. The LP pool section at the bottom tells you the health of the actual pulse. pHEX, right? Pulse pool, pulse X. So again, this is pulse X orientated, not LibriSwap, because some of that stuff's more privacy orientated. So I don't really think you should try and track a privacy protocol, in my opinion. I was thinking about that though. If you do have a privacy protocol, it doesn't mean you don't have to like not track it in terms of doing taxes, etc., tax software, because you could plug in data into software that it can't find, but you can find it because you can tell it. So yeah, but then on chain, other people can't find it. So then it's like the question of how much do you trust the tax software? If indeed this is all going to stay a real thing, and we're not going to go down the path like US and other countries that treat crypto very favorable and have basically no capital gains or income tax, because that would be hilarious, because all these crypto company softwares for countries that have that sort of layout, very favorable to cryptocurrencies. Like what you used to say, capital gains is taxed at 0%. You know, like anyway, like I don't know, gambling or something. Anyway, back to this. The LP pool section tells you, we're looking at pulse X pool, so V1, V2, stable, and it says liquidity, volume, fees earned, transactions, and trade size, average trade size less. That's interesting. Annualized fee yield, okay. And then the workflow that ties it all together, check the valuation gauge to understand the current relationship, then use calculator to model your specific scenario, then cross-reference against the matrix to stress test that scenario under different rational assumptions. That three-step process gives you a much more complete picture than just watching the price in isolation. So in my understanding is, based on this tool that was built by, pretty sure it was Claude, it might have Opus, hang on. No, this was Sunnet, bro. It's not even. This is still acceptable, right? So price is. I laugh at my own. I'm just imagining like if there was stuff better than the best stuff, and how it's just going to keep getting better. The stuff that we're going to be able to build is going to be pretty cool. That's why I'm going to wait just for a bit and then have a look at the bond market stuff next, because that's very hard to wrap one's minds around. But the bond market is quite deep and liquid in the real world. And if it were to get deep and liquid in Ethereum, which would be more expensive, and Pulse Chain, which would be cheaper, it would be very interesting to see how the price of HEX would be affected by that. And if more capital would come into play in that sphere, and if or not there would actually be any yield there on top of, I don't know if it would be on top of the existing yield, if there's any yield with HEX. What's it called? Yeah, anyway, we'll look at that later. Now, let's have a little play, shall we? So the price is surprisingly well, is holding up surprisingly well. Sorry, I'm having trouble pushing the words out correctly. They're coming out, but they're just not coherent at times. I'll fix it in my mind. Sorry, people. Now, let's have a play. So we go. Let's have a look. So we're looking at HEX, pulse, find, set pHEX, and then set pulse. Why is it dropping? pHEX 007. Why is it set there for? Oh, okay. I think I put the wrong answer. 0.001753. 0.0073. And technically it should come up at the current ratio, the exact price. But alas, the implied price, see, this is what I'm saying, the numbers are interesting. The implied price would actually be at the current ratio. Hang on, that can't be right, bro. See, look at that. 0.06. Okay. Why are you doing that, bro? I didn't even touch that. That was weird. I didn't hard code anything in. No one hard coded anything into this. Okay. Yeah, there we go. That's better. There we go. It's funny, I've got these scales, right? And they must have a tolerance built in, and every now and then, I reckon it's the rounding. It can go from anywhere between 0.02 out, the same thing. And I know how much it weighs, and I'm like weighing it. I'm like, it's like it triggered and then triggered again, and then, yeah, it's kind of weird. Not the most high-end scales, but yeah. I don't know why I thought that. Yeah, so that's the price. That's good. That's what we want. We want to see. We basically want to see the current price at this ratio would equal the current price of Pulse Chain, right? So with the current ratio, if it's a hold, so how would ratios change? So if we go to, why do you keep changing? We set it a penny, right? 0.01. This is hex, right? So there's a big ask. That's a 6.36x from here, up 536%. Which is interesting. Like 536, 6.36. Anyway, it would imply potentially a current ratio, as per this calculator, not including on the LP pools and whatever's going on, that the price could hit 0.0004736. So then 7, so you lose a 0. Okay. So then we could go. Why does it keep? That's weird. 7, 8. Okay. So it goes to a penny, right? So we can then cross-reference that against this. Go set a pulse here. Then we would have a similar. That's good that it's roughly the same. But then if the price of pulse will be pulled up to that price, it would then bring the price up of hex potentially to 0.009999. So basically close to a penny. So this is interesting to watch. Worth covering here is the ratio pulse per hex changes when either asset moves against a different speed to the other. There are really only 4 situations. So both go up equally. So that's in relation to this. I'll try to understand this a little bit better. We'll play with pHEX and we'll set it at 0.50. God forbid. And that will bring pulse to 0.002362. So then the question will be which one is pulling which one up, etc. In my opinion, we'll reverse engineer that by copying that, set it at pulse, put it here. It should equal to, yeah, it'll pull it up. Similarly, in the way that hex would pull it up, pulse would pull it up. If you follow. Now, we have this here. Ratios both go up equally. Ratio stays the same if pHEX goes up. Ratio stays the same. pHEX goes up 10%. Pulse goes up 10%. The number of PS texted by 1 pHEX doesn't change at all. The ratio is completely neutral. Moves happen in lockstep. So we could put a calculator in to figure out what's going on, but we actually do already have this here. It's calculating that for us. Now, pHEX goes up faster than pulse. So ratio increases, now takes more pulse to buy 1 pHEX than before. This means pHEX is outperforming pulse on a relative basis. The tools valuation gauge would show PLS getting cheaper relative to pHEX. I think you could also see it here. You could watch it as the slight divergence, mild signal only, saying that there's a small relative drift of 1.72% between pHEX and PLS over the last 24 hours. Not strong enough to call clear expensive or cheap, but worth monitoring. A larger divergence could give a cleaner read. So what you could look at here would be something like if the prices not start getting skewed out, but they start. Could that happen? I guess it could, but basically the ratio would change, the price would change, and you could end up with something like I thought the price at 50 cents per pHEX on Pulse chain, not including eHEX on Ethereum, also on Pulse chain. I thought the price would be 0.002362, but for some reason it's different. Why is it different? And then you go, okay, maybe the ratios are, we can have a look at the ratios. Now, core tools valuation gauge, which show you Pulse is getting cheaper relative to Hex. Again, everyone probably knows this. I know it's very boring, but I just need to do this myself. Pulse goes up faster than pX. Ratio decreases. It now takes fewer PLS to buy one pHEX. Pulse is outperforming pHEX on a relative basis. The gauge will show you PLS getting more expensive relative to pX. One goes up while the other goes down. The ratio moves dramatically in whichever direction. This is where the bigger signals show up and the tool is most useful, because the sharp ratio moving in the other direction often reverts back toward this historical relationship once the divergent runs out of steam. So basically, this would be similar to the Hart's law calculation, I believe. I could be wrong, because you could then technically make this tool for every other token in existence if you had a strong enough computer to do it, and then run it, and then keep it all like, have enough tokens, I guess, if you're doing it through AI. This is why this matters practically for your decisions. Say you hold both pX and Pulse, the ratio suddenly drops like one way, because Pulse pumped hard while pX barely moved. The tool flags PLS as expensive relative to pX. That's a signal worth paying attention to historically. In AMM-based ecosystems where both assets share the same pool, sharp divergence tend to partially revert. So I don't know if that's even possible. So I'm understanding, but then I'm checking it out. Whether you can act on that is your call, but at least you can see it clearly rather than just watching two separate price charts instead of watching just like this here and going, what's going on? We can have a look and say, well, there's a ratio and there's also some liquidity. There's some future prices that could take place or may not take place, and based on the ratio, what could the price be in the future if you so inclined to do that. Now, whether you act as your call. Now, the other practical use for LP provides if you're providing liquidity to pX wrapped Pulse pool, the ratio changes literally what determines your impermanent loss or gain. So when the ratio moves away from where you enter the LP, you accumulate more of the underlying. So this is probably slightly more complex than if you have a token that's going up really high, the one's not moving, stable, or it's going down, then you would have less of the one that's going up really high. This is like the next level of that. This is saying that when the ratio moves away from where you entered LP, you accumulate more of the underperforming asset, to less of the high performing one, and less of the outperforming one, which is, so more of the underperforming one. Now, the matrix is the tool that lets you see exactly what the different ratio scenarios mean for the relative prices, which essentially a visual impermanent loss reference table, even though it doesn't label itself that way. Kind of cool. So it's got like a double. You call this your impermanent loss tool calculator. I don't know. You can, Anyway, I didn't mean to do that, but this is why I'm going to find this tool useful. I'll wrap it up here. I think that is everything. I hope the audio, pretty sure audio came through. Yeah, microphone actually sounds okay. But thank you for tuning in. After this, I think a good thing to build, if someone else doesn't build it, I'll try and build something. When I say build, I mean use AI to have a look at, I'm not sure if, it's hard to say, maybe the actuator finance stuff, maybe, because that looks pretty interesting. However, I don't think it's quite deep enough yet in terms of comparing it to the US bond market. It's like it's a long way away from being that level of capital If, however, big if, when, how, no, if, however, price keeps going up, it just keeps going up and does actually melt some people's face away. And we have a look here, and we can imagine sort of what would, let's do, see pulse, and we're saying, should it hit, should hex on pulse chain, was it that? Should hex on pulse chain hit 50 cents, not including hex on Ethereum? And you have 2 million of these, 2 million of them. It needs a comment, bro. That's what everyone's saying. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we have 2 million hex tokens at 50 cents a piece on Pulse Chain only, and maybe you have some Pulse Chain as well. So you'd have what is that? What is that? I'll do maths. Hang on, I should probably do maths. Have a look at. Mind you, this is US. So say you had $1 million, and the current. Wait, what am I saying? Oh, gone nuts. Let's back to here. Back to the tool. The tool says 0.002. Okay, so say for instance, Pulse Chain. Now, which one will happen first? Will Pulse Chain get to 0 or pHEX get 0.42 cents? Let's have a look. Okay, so Pulse Chain at 2.5, 0.0025. And you have, what was the sacrifice rate for what's one validator? I can't remember. Is it 21 million? 42. I can't remember. So you got like 21 million. 23. So you have 21 million, then you would have something like very close to probably that million, because the ratio would be similar. Why does it change on me? It's a bit glitchy. You gotta fix this up. 2.5. No, it's way off. 52. 52. That's not too bad, right? Relative to what you've got now. So what's 21 million times 21 million? Well, I'll do 2.1 million. I think I did 2.1. 21. There we go. There we go. That would be about 53 cents hex. Remember, maybe you have a holding of hex. 21 times. Oh, yeah. So 52,500. Right, cool. So that wouldn't be bad considering currently. 21 million. Man, that's a long way away. That's a long way. That 21 million is currently worth 1,562.4. Cool. Yeah, so we are a long way away, people. All right. That's about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, people. I'm not sure where we're going, people. If we're going like 50 cents again, let's just say $1. Pulses are like 0.04, bro. That would be very interesting, because what would that be, like 21? Is it 21? I can't remember. Times. That'll be 100K. And the current prices. Okay. Yeah, so hex at $1, we're a long way away from that. If X was to get to $1, pulse chain say it gets to 0.004712, that would be a lot of capital, and all of a sudden that bond market that we were talking about before, maybe gets used, maybe it doesn't. That would be a lot deeper, a lot heavier than it is now currently. So that's what I think I'll look at next. Is that even without it though, it'd be just crazy to see what would happen a hex of $1, because this is just hex pulse chain. Everything else on the chain will be floating to the surface in prices like that. I think I'll leave it there. But yeah, I'll update this website. And if you get bored, maybe check it out if you want. You don't have to, it's all good. It's literally costing money to keep it running for no reason other than for me to use it. So please feel free to use it if you want. Build a better one. But yeah. All right, free speech signing out. That's it. I've got nothing else. Yeah. Hopefully the pump continues. Hopefully we get to like some interesting prices. And if and when we do, I'll be glad that I foresaw how much we could get to. All right, free speech signing out, people.